Pebble Road. I hope all of you have had a wonderful week so far and looking forward to the weekend. So a little bit about me and Pebble Road, and then before I introduce Alex. So Pebble Road is into digital transformation, helps organizations with their digital transformation needs and journeys. So you must be wondering, if we are in digital transformation, how come we're choosing a webinar on leadership? What we're realizing is that digital transformation, it requires a lot of leadership, and especially a different kind of leadership, and that's what research and case studies of some companies that are winning and some companies that are losing are telling us. And that's when Alex comes in. So Alex Trost has spent many years in the leadership positions, and he's got this special angle that he brings to the table. And that angle is that going forward, we not just want to be digital by default, but we have to learn to be more human by default. And this is more so with regards to leadership. So that's the reason why we thought Alex, who's just fresh out of publishing a new book, has put all of this together, and we thought that we'll bring it to the world and see what we can learn from Alex. So without further ado, over to you, Alex. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Maish and Pebble Road, for having me here. It's a great pleasure, and thanks to all of you for investing your Friday evening with us. I know everybody waiting for the weekend. I hope all you and your families are really doing fine. We really want to make this session worthwhile for you. We have a little bit a challenging title with leadership in the new normal. Yeah, what is really the new normal? What is even a norm? Was the old things normal? And what has really changed, or what really will change? I consider myself as a lateral leader. I don't really like the term thought leader, because by declaring myself a thought leader, I would make you a thought follower, which I don't really want to do. But I rather want to instill you to start thinking on your own. So I will have a lot of questions today, and maybe also some point of views which you might really have not had so far. And if each one of you has maybe one new thought at the end of the session and takes one thing back where you think, okay, this is now really something different, then that would be really great. And I have no crystal ball here lying in front of me, so for sure I also don't know what's now happening in the new normal, but I just want to give you some thoughts where I strongly believe whatever happens, you will be well equipped. And with this, I always like to start with the end in mind. And I would like you to go into your annotation tool. I think meanwhile we are all Zoom gurus. If not, if you move your mouse up to the top of the screen, there comes a small list, and there's one tool called Annotate. So if you press on that, then there comes several annotation tools. So please take the T for the text box, put it anywhere on the screen, and start typing. The sooner you start typing, the more space you have. So what would be great for you at the end of the session? What would you like to have? So while things are coming in, I might comment them, and I will also, throughout the session, try to address them as much as possible. So I have a script prepared, but I'm super flexible to really make sure that you go home with something you expected. And by the way, this is already one of the first great leadership tools, setting clear expectations. The better you set clear expectation, the higher will be the motivation and the lower the disappointment later. So I hope you are all start typing the answer. That's cool. I like that one. As I said, I don't have the crystal ball in front of me. So you can make up your own mind if it will be the answer or not. Will old practice, now unfortunately I can't fully read this because it's behind my, will old practices be dropped? What should change and is a challenge for leader in this period? That's a nice one. One idea to inspire me and colleagues to change with confidence. That's good. I think we will address these reflections about possible future given the change in the environment. Okay, thanks a lot. A new paradigm shift comes in. What is even a paradigm? What will be the new paradigm? How has the practice of leadership changed? Yeah, exactly. If it has really changed. Okay, a lot of great questions. Thank you. So let's move on. I think we can address most of them. We might also have some Q&A at the end. Clearer insight to cut through a lot of the chatter on leadership. Oh, I love that one. Because I also believe there's a lot of chatter on leadership and a lot of gurus. Everybody knows now what's the best leadership. And also I love that whoever wrote that you're talking about investing time and not spending time. Yeah, we always talk about spending time, but everybody who knows a little bit finance, when you spend something, it's an expense and it's gone. Whereas when you invest, you get a return on investment. So think of time as something that you invest and that you don't spend. Maybe this might be a first nice takeaway already. So I love this one here as well. So a lot of great inputs, and I think all of you are ready to go. At least you twinkled your fingers a little bit. Let me clear this here away and move on and start just talk a little bit about change. Sorry, now it's not gone yet. I mean, we are maybe in one of the biggest changes ever. Some people are even comparing it the biggest since World War II. I will not go that far. I mean, the thing is we are constantly living in change. People are saying nothing is as constant as change. And I strongly believe those people who are always open to change are doing much better than those who don't. And I also believe this change curve is very well known to everyone. I just want to give a little bit a different angle on this change curve today, because I believe what a lot of people don't know, that it goes back to the 1970s from an Austrian woman called Elisabeth Kübler-Kohl, and she did a lot of research on grievance. And surely losing a loved one might be the most traumatic change that we can ever imagine. And unfortunately, with COVID, some people had that kind of change as well. And really my condolences and sympathy to those. So she defined these 5 stages. The first stage is denial. So if you really lose a loved one, we deny that this even happened. We say, this is impossible that this happened. And then eventually a phase of anger comes up, and we start trying to bargain, saying, what I have done. Oh, if the person would come back, I will do anything. Yeah, I mean, even go into that kind of mode before we really fall into something which is depression. And maybe after a certain time, there comes a certain acceptance. So this is how change actually goes for everyone over time, whereas the x-axis is time and the y-axis is generally the energy. And this can be a lot of things. This can be your feelings, your emotions. It can be company performance, sales, revenue. So the corporate world has also realized that every change follows this pattern. And we always have to walk through this, what is called valley of despair. And think about it. You can't build an air bridge. Even when you climb a mountain, you have to go down again to climb the next one. So we can even see a change, like having achieved one goal and getting ready for the next one. So this is also how I would like to see you change, that you can't be always on the peak. You can't build the air bridge from K2 to Mount Everest. You have to go down again and get ready. Also realize that this pattern is how change generally follows. And they call the starting point the status quo. Also, we know now that there is no real status quo because there is always change. So once change is introduced within a company, we have this, what they call the phase of disruption. So where the chaos starts, everybody gets disoriented, and that's when all the performances goes down. And this is exactly also what happened when COVID hit us. And then eventually people also accept it, they adopt it, and finally we have an improved area of performance. The key thing is that everybody walks through this curve in different speeds. Everybody adjusts to change differently, which is what a lot of companies forget, that people have a different speed as they walk through the change curve. Also, everyone starts at a different point of time. When you roll out a corporate change project, for instance, some people know about this earlier than others, and they start earlier than others adopting to the change curve. And if you hit Asia, and by the time it came to Europe or even the US, some parts of Asia were already out of it. The key point I want to make now is maybe also what you never thought about is that the bottom of the valley of despair is a point of crisis. Why am I saying this? The word crisis comes from the Greek word krisis, which actually is a decision point or a turning point, which was later put into medical terms that it's a turning point in someone's illness journey where things get either better or worse. And all the Chinese among us know better than me that the Chinese character for crisis is actually a mixture between danger and opportunity. So my message here at the end of that slide is that every crisis is actually part of a bigger change. And every change has a point of crisis. And this is why we don't like change so much, because we know there is this valley of despair, and we get stuck at this point of denial where we look down at the valley of despair and we are very afraid to go into it. So here the encouragement really to see crisis as an opportunity for things getting better, and that every crisis is part of a bigger change. And even when we look at COVID, at all the dramatic change happening, there are a lot of positive changes happening as well, such as having a much higher acceptance of work from home, or talking about the positive environmental impact. So my question here is, do we see change as something that we manage or that we lead? Generally, we always talk about change management and managing change. And this is maybe another problem, that we always think about change as something to be managed rather as something to be led. And this brings me to the next small interactive activity, where I would like to ask you, if you think about management versus leadership, or manager versus leader, what comes to your mind? So maybe again, your annotation textbook, you can write maybe one or two, not sentences, just one or two very simple words. What comes to your mind when you think of manager, and what comes to your mind when you think of a leader? And again, I might comment, beautiful, tries to control. Actually, that person has already taken the key point. Thanks a lot. Micromanager, exactly. We have micromanagers, but not micro leaders, interestingly. Tries to shape, is more maintaining, ensuring that works get done, is more inspiring. The leader has the big picture view. The leader is the shaper. Wonderful comments. And all of them are right, or there's nothing anyway really wrong. Groom and coach, navigate through the unknown, inspire growth. The manager is more doing the execution. Okay, these are all great comments, and maybe while other things are coming in, I find it very interestingly that we use these terms very commonly, or here guide, now for leader comes guide. Later you will see that this is a brilliant term. So some people are using it like it's two different persons. Yeah, there is a manager and a leader, and a manager does these things and a leader does those things. In other companies, I see it like two different hierarchies levels. You are first promoted to be a manager, and then eventually you are a leader. And rather often than not, they're actually used as synonyms, actually even in leadership literature, and I'm very surprised about that. So what helps a lot, I have a very nerdy hobby. Yeah, I like actually etymology, which is the origin of words. And it helps actually a lot to look at the origins of words. Why? Because based on neuro-linguistic programming, how we term things and what we say has a huge impact on what we are actually doing. And have you ever thought about where the word manager and leader actually come from? I guess not. Yeah? So the word manager comes from the Latin word manus, which is the hand. And we know this very well from our manual car, where we are literally shifting the gears with our hand as compared to the automatic car. And the term management has been around much longer than the corporate world. And when it was introduced to the corporate world during the Industrial Revolution, it was all about control, controlling the four famous M, the method, the machine, the material, and the man. Yes, at that time we didn't talk about diversity, so it was only the men, but meanwhile for sure also the women, but it was all about control. Whereas leader comes from the Germanic word laedere, the guide or the first one. So now we are really talking about people. We are talking about a group of people, and there is somebody who guides them. So whereas when we talk about controlling, it's more about things. There's actually another nice old English term, litho, which is a travel or a journey, and which is another route for leader. So if you put this both together, leadership is really about this journey, about traveling together, and there's one guy who helps the others, making sure that nobody is left behind, whereas the manager or the managing role is more controlling. So my message here is these are both roles which we all have. As a manager, we are more the controller. As a leader, we are more the conductor. And I would like you maybe from today on to think in that term. And when it comes to things, I manage them responsibly. Yeah, you manage a budget, you manage a delivery schedule, you manage an output of a factory, but you lead people, and ideally you lead people respectfully. So if we link back to the thought of change management, if we say change management, we control change like a process. And this is what unfortunately is happening. And think back of the last change project you had maybe at work. I bet with you $10 that it was first about project organization, deadlines, which systems have to be aligned, which processes have to be changed, and it was not really about the people. But once you say really leading people through change, you have right from the beginning a totally different mindset, and you really focus on people. So even now with this change and this crisis, once you make it all about the people, already you are 80% there, and we will later look a little bit more at this. So I hope you are following me and like these insights, and maybe it's some new thoughts. And with this, one more engagement here now, because also this was some of the questions you brought up. What do you think now? And maybe now you can use your stamp tool under the annotation. And do you really think there will be a totally new leadership style emerging? Then please put your stamp or a tick or whatever on the left side. Or do you rather think it's really a renaissance of traditional values and principles of leadership? Then put a stamp, star, or whatever on the right side. And let's see what kind of quick poll is happening here. Okay, I like that you use different stamps. We have here hearts and stars and one person in between, but the message is very clear. Yeah, so I would say 80% believe there is a new leadership style coming up, whereas the minority believes it's rather a renaissance of old values and principles. And this makes it pretty tough for me now, because my main message of this course will be that I'm rather on the right side. Yeah. That it's rather about traditional values and principles. And maybe as a starting comment why I believe so, when I look at all the posts coming up recently, being it on LinkedIn, on Harvard Business Review, Gallup or whatever, all what you read when it comes to leadership style is really about transparency, respect, trust, empathy. And honestly, none of them are really new. And I would go that far in saying that the crisis, what happened actually in the crisis is shifting or splitting the wheat from the chaff. So those leaders who had those traditional values and principles and lived by it are now doing much, much better. And others are trying to find something fast and just following. So once you do that, you are anyway always a follower. So you might not be with me now, and I know I have now 80% of the people against me. So let's see what comes out at the end of the session. And anyway, I always like the challenge. And I hope you have an enough open mind that you don't switch out now if you're on the left side, but that this is maybe even more engaging now to stay here with me. Sorry, I have to put your nice annotations away again. Thanks really for your engagement. So here I feel that leadership has really become a fashion show, and practically every year, if not even every month, there is a new leadership style coming up. By the way, we have more than 20 leadership books hitting the shelf every week. We have thousands of leadership posts in LinkedIn every day. But when we look at Gallup research, the disengagement of people is higher than ever. So something is going wrong. It cannot be the new leadership style. So despite the new leadership styles, something is going wrong. And if you just look at some of the past leadership styles, the autocratic versus the democratic, transformational versus transactional, directive versus supportive, authoritarian versus servant, and the list goes on. Firstly, when you look always at the pairs, the top word is much more linked to managing and controlling, whereas the bottom word is more towards leadership. So all these pairs have actually even now still full value. And I think it's okay when you manage things that you are sometimes transactional and directive. And as a leader, you are transformational and supportive. So all these styles that came up over time are actually a lot of old wine in new bottles. And it doesn't stop here. We have now, because of agility, the agile leadership, we have digital age, the digital leadership, human leadership, and now in Corona, the resilient leadership. But the main question is, what are they all doing? And what is really so different from what we had in the past? So where I would like to come today here is more, don't follow this fashion show, but make leadership more really your show. Find your own style based on great values and principles, because then you can really become an authentic leader. Then you can be this rock in the surf, where people can really hold on, or this pillar, and that person where people really want to follow, rather than following a leadership style who now somebody else says, this is now on vogue. And when we talk about leadership, there are a lot of currencies of leadership, what we believe leaders should have. And you might also think now by yourself, what do you think a leader needs? And normally the first things that come up when I ask people in seminars is they need charisma, they need foresight, they need influence, and many, many more, whatever you can add to the list. When you look at researchers, the key currency of leadership is trust. And why? Firstly, when you look at the other words mentioned here, if you don't have an environment of trust, and if people don't trust you, you will never be able to influence them. Even if you have the greatest foresight, if you don't have trust, people won't follow you. And if you're a very charismatic person, but people don't trust you, they might see you as arrogant. And even looking now in the current situation, I mean, unfortunately, some companies really have to let go people. But those companies where employees can trust that the company really tried everything. I mean, like an example, Singapore Airlines. Unfortunately, they also have to let go of people now, but they really did a lot of things before they took that measure, showing people that we really tried, but we have hit a level where we can't, because unfortunately we are not a non-for-profit organization. Whereas there are other companies, the smallest dip in the bottom line, the first thing what they are doing is letting go of people. And for sure, once you are doing that, you lose any kind of trust. I know some of you love numbers, so here maybe some data which comes from an article from the Harvard Business Review on the neuroscience of trust. So companies who have a high level of trust compared to companies with a lower level of trust, the people are 74% less stressed. They are double then energetic, around 50% more productivity. They are much less sick, much more engaged, overall more satisfied also with their life. And this is what we want at the end of the day, that they love their life, and they also feel 40% less burned out. If you still don't believe in those numbers, since we talk about employee engagement and how to engage employees also looking forward, there are a lot of companies doing employee engaged surveys, and maybe the Rolls-Royce among those companies is Great Place to Work. They do nothing else but measuring employee engagement. And I quickly want to share with you the matrix they are using. So generally they have around 60 questions along 5 key dimensions, which are credibility, respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie, but they are all evolving around trust. So if you have a high trust environment, already 70% of your Great Place to Work or employee engagement results are straight in your pocket, whereas even pride and camaraderie are indirectly also linked to trust. And the co-founder of Great Place to Work, Robert Levering, said, a great place to work is one where you trust the people you work for, you have pride what you do, and you enjoy the people you work with. And I strongly believe you buy into all of them. The thing is, again, Great Place to Work does these surveys for decades, and I believe they will also now not switch their engagement drivers. So at the end of the day, even when we look at crisis and looking forward, how we engage employees has not really changed. We might use not really different engagement methods. We might need different stories, different pictures, but the key things, how people are engaged, has not really changed. So to summarizing the 3 engagement drivers, pride, trust, and enjoyment. So pride is really about this purposeful work. but also that we have a clear mission, vision, and strategy. And I think these topics are always over discussed. And the problem is people always forget the execution part. People love when things are moving, and think back on your own company life. When is the last time you were really engaged? And again, I would bet another $10. It was when things were really moving. It was not when a great strategy was announced or a vision was presented, but really when things were moving. And this is what we unfortunately always forget, that we are so focused on this vision and this strategy, but not so much on really getting things done and involving people in this. Trust is really all about creating this environment on trust. And here I would like you to imagine, maybe close even your eyes, and imagine a person you fully trust. And then imagine how it is working with that person. Or if you have a problem coming to that person. If you have maybe messed up, how would that person react? If you are busy in your room and that person enters your room, how do you feel? Yeah, it's just great if you have this trust relationship at work as compared to a person you don't trust. So again, it comes back, if you are a leader that is trusted by the people, who gives this comfortable feeling to the others around, you can really make miracles work, even in difficult times like now. And people will really go with you through the crisis if you have done your homework before and built up this trust. And enjoyment, last but not least, firstly, being valued. I think this is mentioned very often, and many studies shows that valued and respected people always go the extra mile, if not the extra miles. And another thing is a mindset shift. I always tell my clients to move from fun at work to work at fun. What do I mean by that? Yeah? We put a lot of emphasis in creating a lot of fun around work, yeah? Like this after work parties, this team building, and all those things, which are definitely fine, but they are very short-lived if the work itself is not fun. So as leaders, once we have managed that people love what they are doing and we help them to love what they are doing, when we ask them, hey, which report maybe you don't have to do anymore, which process you don't like, how can you make your work is more fun, then again, we have really the fun. And then we can still do these after work parties, but the greatest dinner and dance will evaporate 2 days later if people don't like their work. The greatest holiday will be forgotten 2 days when you come back to work if you don't like your work. And now when we work from home, this becomes even more important, because now we can't have this after work party, all this team building, all those things together. So again, now for you as a leader, it's more important than ever that you make sure the people love what they are doing. So when you check in with them, ask them, do you love your job? Have you ever asked them, do you like your job? How can I help you to like your job more? Which activities maybe you think you shouldn't do, or which activities would you like to do? And help them to really design the work, for sure having the end in mind, what eventually they have to do. I mean, if they signed up for an engineering company and want to play the violin the whole day, this might for sure not work, but you might be surprised how reasonable employees are if you really just ask them, how could we make your work more fun? Okay, so this for engagement, how to get people, maybe even now through the crisis. I believe many of those thoughts will help you. And now coming back to what I said earlier, rather than maybe inventing now a totally new leadership style, I want to introduce a model which I call the 3 C's of leadership, and where I would like to claim, and we do this later in the discussion, we will have group sessions later where you can discuss about it. I would claim that everything about leadership fits into the 3 categories. Yeah, maybe a very big claim. Let's see, so you can challenge me later. So the first C is character, that we have a very strong character. The second C is that we show the direction like a compass. The third C is that we are a coach. And I think this one is maybe the most prominent, because now a lot of those called leadership gurus say that a leader should be a great coach, or maybe the best metaphor for a leader is a coach. So let me quickly explain these 2 terms by maybe showing an opposite. Why have I chosen character and, for instance, not personality? Firstly, the word, coming back to my nerdy hobby, the word personality comes from the Latin word persona, which is actually the mask we are wearing. So the personality is never who we truly are. Secondly, personality is changing over time. That's why I always say, please caution these personality tests. You all know, or most likely you don't even know the algorithms running behind it. And if you run a personality test with the same person half a year later, you might get very different results, because the personality is the layer outside, whereas the character is really the deeply rooted inside us. So let's not look so much at personality, but let's go one level deeper and really form a great character. Then you might also say, Alexander, compass, come on, old-fashioned tool. Why not a navigation system? And then my answer is because navigation system is for me the perfect metaphor for what somebody said earlier, the micromanager. What is a navigation system doing? It tells you exactly how to go from A to B. And if there is an obstacle, it even guides you around the obstacle. And if you take a wrong turn, it starts nagging at you, yelling at you that you better make a U-turn rather soon. Exactly what a micromanager is doing. As a compass, however, we just show the general direction and we empower the people to let them go how they want to go. More importantly, a compass does not interfere, but waits patiently until the person is lost and then takes out the compass again and asks for help. And this is the relationship also we want to create with our employees, that we don't constantly advise them and help them and nag at them, but that they know they can come to us when they need help. And they take the compass out of the pocket, they ask us, and then we are there for them to help. So please don't be a micromanaging navigation system, but a compass. And for the coach, last but not least, as leaders also very often we believe we have to be a consultant. We have to have the answers for all the questions. But as Voltaire said so nicely, don't judge a man by his answers, but rather by his questions. And again, sorry ladies, Voltaire came from the 18th century, so we didn't talk about diversity. Nowadays, we should talk, don't judge a man or a woman by his or her answers, but rather by the questions. So actually, as a leader, we can never know all the answers, but it's much more, do we ask the right questions? And then, more importantly, at the right time with the right tone, that we show empathy, that we really feel for the people. And again, you will be surprised what comes out from there. And we will talk now about all those 3 C's in detail, and at the end of the day you will have a little bit time to think about them. And again, my claim is that those 3 C's, whatever you have learned about leadership, fits into one of the 3 of them. And secondly, if you deep dive a little bit more into them and take maybe those things away, what I will tell now in the second half, it will equip you well even for crisis, or I would say especially for crisis, because now the 3 C's are maybe more important than ever. So again, also please don't be a consultant, but rather a coach. And let's now look into the 3 one by one, by maybe first summarizing.
Hey,
yeah.
Alex?
Yes?
We have some questions. Do you like to take them now or towards the end?
Yeah, if they are important to move on, maybe yes. Yeah.
So I think Wolf was asking why character and not values.
Okay, Wolf, great question. Hold on 2 minutes. Yeah. I love you, Wolf. You opened the door for me already. Any more questions?
So there's one on the new style, but I think you've covered that already. So yeah, that's it. We'll catch up on the values stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So to summarize, I would say that based on a great character, develop people like a coach and guide them like a compass, and you cannot go wrong. And as I said, I believe this is the all-fit leadership sentence. And at the end, the challenge will be, what else can you find? So now let's look at the 3 C's one by one, starting with character, which is really, I put this little diamond here because it's really your jewel. This is all where it all starts. If you are of great character, it will be much easier for you to be a great leader. And each of the 3 C's has a little model running behind, since I'm a big fan for models. And the one for the character is the VPS, and I guess Wolf can already imagine what V stands for. And I like it because VPS, since we are talking about high-tech and digitalization, VPS we generally know as the virtual private server, where our virtual private network is running on. And I like this as a metaphor for character, because our character is also very virtual. We can't really see it. It's very private to us, and it's also something that serves us. So, but here for sure, VPS stands now, Wolf here, it comes, values. Yeah, so values is clearly a subset of character. And here I'm quite shocked when I talk with clients and ask them, what are your values? So here I'm also asking you this, to take this home maybe over the weekend. What are your values? What do you really stand for? What do you believe in? And if you have those values, do you really take them as your guide? Do you make every decision based on your values? This leads to the next part of the acronym, the P, the principles. Because based on those values, we form our guiding principles. For instance, if your value is honesty, then your guiding principle would be that you always tell the truth, that you don't hide, that you try to stand up for the truth, even if it's for your disadvantage, and that you also then really live by those principles. Once you have such a principle-based leadership, again, this is when you become authentic leadership, authentic leader, and this is when people really realize you walk the talk and where they really want to follow you. And the S stands for stand. This is at the end the result. Once you have clear values which form your guiding principles, then this is what you really stand for. And I like this coming back to that to the rock or the solid tree. These are really your roots. And imagine if you stand, and again, this is now a wordplay, if you stand in court for a trial, sometimes there are character witnesses called in. And mind you, they are never personality witnesses. Yeah? They are always character witnesses we are calling in. So here I also want to ask you, if you would now stand on trial and if character witnesses would call in, what would they say about you? What would they say about you that it's impossible that you have done a crime or anything negative? And this is roughly what I want to give you in forming a strong character, by really making sure you know your values. And if you have never done this, you can Google a list of values and you will get some lists. Yeah, values can be altruism, forgiveness. They can be even money making. Money making is a good value, but then at least accept it and make your guiding principles according to it and stand for it, so that people know you are a money making or money minded person, or you are a career minded person. There is nothing against it, as long as we stand up for it and we make it very clear. There's nothing worse if we are career minded, but we pretend we are not. So here the main message is, have a very congruent character and be true to yourself, because people can sniff this out. And a picture says more than 1,000 words. That's why I quickly want to show here a picture, put a picture in your head, also coming back to personality, saying that if human were a plant, our character would be the roots and personality would be the branches. And I want to leave you 10 seconds to think about it, which pictures come to your head before I give some answers when I normally put this picture up in a classroom training, because it's actually pretty nice. Yeah, because like roots, our character is not really seen. Yeah, it's underground. On the other hand, like roots, it's where everything starts. And if you have rotten roots, the plant can't really grow. So if you have a rotten character, everything else doesn't really work. Whereas the personality, the branches, they might grow here and there, they change over time. And sometimes we even cut them off in order to make a new branch coming out. And this is the same how it works for our personality. So again, I would really like to make this mind shift. Unfortunately, our society is very personality oriented nowadays. Also, our literature and social media is much more looking at personality. So here really go this step back and create and look at your character and think, how can you form a great character by knowing your values, by translating them into guiding principles, and at the end of the day, really know what you stand for. Okay, so this is my foundation for the character. If we now move on to the compass, again, it's more the guiding part. And for compass, we have another simple model, the 3 Ps. Whereas the first P stands for purpose, and I guess all of you would easily buy into that one, because everybody says purpose is very important. The millennials love purpose, and especially during crisis time, purpose is more important than ever. The second P is having a clear picture, and the third P is a path. So purpose, I mean, Simon Sinek wrote a whole book about Start With Why, and I really like this, because purpose is not only having a purpose in life and whatever we do, but really every step that we do always start with why and say why we are doing this. So purpose is not only the purpose in work that we discussed earlier. But whatever we do, even the smallest reorganization, whatever our announcement you do, even if you promote a person, maybe, why talk about this openly, why you promote this person and not another person? Because otherwise people will anyway talk about it. Did you promote the person now because it's the teacher's pet? So whatever you do, when you talk about openly and clearly, and what is the purpose behind, you become again much more transparent, you become much more credible, and you eliminate that people make their own story. Believe me, if you don't give them the story, they will make their own story. When it comes to the picture, I literally mean draw a picture. I mean, a picture says more than 1,000 words, and we have always a lot of visions and strategies which nobody can remember. When I come to companies, maybe they can remember the vision, but normally the values, it already stops. And if you then comes to the strategies, there is even nothing. So picture really means guide the people in their heart where you want to guide them. Once you have touched their heart, you don't have to worry about their mind anymore. And you cannot touch the heart with words, you can just do much better with a picture. Imagine what Martin Luther King did with his I Had a Dream speech, or JFK when he announced about the moon mission. So really guide your team in this picture. And this is now more important than ever when it looks maybe very dire to a lot of people. But draw this picture in their head where we can maybe be in 6 months from now if we all work together under your wonderful leadership. How can things look like? And really try to draw this picture, maybe on a A4 paper, or if you can't draw it, make it imagining them in their head by closing their eyes and drawing this picture. It's very, very powerful and motivating, especially in those days where people have other dire pictures in front of their head. And for sure, as leaders, we should show the path. But the main thing is it should be a dotted line. If people walk first to the right and then to the left, or first left and then right, leave it up to them, empower them, as long as you make sure that they walk somehow the road and to the direction you want to be eventually, so that everybody ends up at the same place, but we let them walk there alone. So when I say compass, for sure, it doesn't mean that you remain in the pocket the whole time. And clearly, as a leader, we should have a kind of an idea where we want to go, but we, again, should not micromanage. And actually, the 3 Ps goes very well in line with mission, vision, strategy. And I want to shed a little bit a different light of this largely overused words now by again using etymology. And I hope this will be a little bit helpful, because the word mission comes from the Latin word mittere, which means to send. And here the question to be answered is, what have you been sent for? Have you ever sit down with your team and thought about what is actually the mission of our team? What have we been sent for? Or in other terms, if we would be vanished tomorrow, what would happen? How would the company realize that? And I believe this will be a very engaging and interesting discussion with your team. What is really the mission of your team? What is the, what have you been sent for in your team? The picture goes well in hand with the vision, which again comes from an old French word, vision, which is like a supernatural foresight. So here the idea is, I like this term also again, because it means you as a leader, you see something other people don't see yet. Yeah, all your team members see only doom and gloom, but you as a leader, you see something greater out there, what we can achieve together and where you can guide them together with their help, but for sure also their input. So the important thing here is, whenever you make this mission, vision, strategy, involve your team members. Yes, as a compass, you should have a first idea, but never carve everything in stone. Let the people co-develop this mission and vision, and then you will really have a great engagement and wonderful result. And the path at the end goes nice and well in line with strategy. Strategy finally comes from the Greek word stratagem, which was the office of the general. So this is where all the war plans were done. And no wonder that Sun Tzu's Art of War had a recent renaissance in the corporate world, because everybody was intrigued by these war strategies. At the end of the day, strategy is just a sexy word for plan. Yeah? At the end, it's just that it means that you have a plan. The important message is, yes, as a leader, we should have a plan, but make it a rough plan, a plan that leaves as much as possible flexibility to the people, because only then you can have flexibility and agility, if not everything is carved in stone yet. Sorry, I'm lecturing here quite now a fair bit. I still hope it's engaging and you are still with me. Let me go through the last thing, the coach, and then we will have breakout session discussions and hopefully also still some time for Q&A. Unless, Maish, if there are any questions now for the compass model, otherwise I would go on for the coach model.
I would like to, please, if you have questions, put it up on the chat and we'll post it to Alex. But Alex, you can, now you're moving on to the coach model, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully we get more questions.
Yeah, so which is cool, no questions. Silence means acceptance is what I'm always saying. Also, I see all 25 people are still here, which is another great sign. So I really appreciate that you stay here with me. So hold on for one more round when it's about the coach. And here the key thing is really the question mark and not the exclamation mark. Don't be too hard on yourself. The main thing is by nature, we are designed to answer and to advise. So it really requires conscious and cautious effort to be a coach, to be really the questioner. Another thing where nature works against us is our listening capacity, that we always tend to listen to answer. And I mean, if you're honest again with yourself, when somebody is saying something, you are already preparing your answer. Especially if it's maybe a boss, because you don't want to look stupid, you already prepare what you are saying. And also when it's maybe a person reporting to you, you want to look smart and say something, and we don't really listen. The thing here is there is something called like the elusive 600. Yeah, we are talking at the average speed of around 150 words per minute, but we can listen at a speed of around 750 minutes. I mean, these are aga-aga numbers, how we say, not really aga-aga, I mean, they are based on studies, but they are a little bit give and take. But the thing is, we can listen much faster than we can speak. That's the main message. So we have here a gap of 500 to 600 words where our brain is now not hearing something, but our brain is active preparing something. So here the key thing is really to become a great coach, and even coaches I have seen struggle with that, is to keep this monkey brain not busy, yeah, to really be fully there with the person and really listen. And again, that's why I like the Chinese character for listening, because it doesn't have only the ears, but also the eyes and the heart, so that we are really listening with the whole person. And not just, as I said, to reply. So here, don't take this for granted. This is really a challenge for a lot of people, because by nature, we are more designed to be a consultant than a coach. So you have to make this conscious transition to really listen to people with empathy. And here I would again like you to think a little bit now, what makes a great coach? Yeah, what is a great coach for you? And while I'm elaborating a little bit about it, telling again about the history of coach, maybe you put up some words. What does a coach mean for you? Interestingly, the word coach literally comes from the coach as we know it, this horse carriage with 4 wheels, which made traveling easier for us. And I love this as acronym or this metaphor again, because we were talking about leadership is traveling together. And the very first coach was making traveling easier for us by not walking or horse riding anymore, but finally to sit relatively comfortable in a coach and making this traveling easier for us. Like you as a coach should also make the journey for your people more easy and more exciting. When coach was actually first introduced in the kind of business world in education, where we saw coaches as a kind of tutor, again, to help students to pass their results. Then we saw coaches in the sports world. And here also, again, it's coaches is about getting the best out of people. And some sport coaches, they are actually quite fat and chubby, and they can't do the sport by themselves anymore. Because again, you as a leader, you don't have to do everything by yourself, but you have to enable your people to do the right thing. Also, like a sports coach, like in soccer or in baseball, they have to make sure that they put the right people at the right place, which again, you as a leader is one of your key responsibility to make sure that the people are fit to their right talent. Sometimes people are just not performing because they are sitting at the wrong place. If you put a goalie into the offense, for sure it will definitely not work. Or if you put a striker into the goal, you might also have quite a bad luck. And here are now some words coming up, that the coach is a motivator, not showing the way, but helping them to find it. I love it. You're already picking up some of the terms. Okay, you are even saying not even showing the way, but helping them to find them, which is even greater. Help people make conscious decisions and actions. Exactly. You don't make the decisions for them and the actions, but you help them to do them. You are a motivator. You push them to do better. You help them to see blind spots. Wonderful. You uncover their weakness and help them to address them. Yeah, ideally without scolding them, but in an empathic way. Is somebody who understands you. Exactly. A coach-coachee relationship is also a relationship based on trust, and somebody. If you have somebody trusted who understands you, they also talk then much differently and can address maybe your areas for improvement very differently. They help you to understand. All wonderful comments, and they are definitely all very true for a coach, being it a tuition coach, a sports coach, or even a professional business coach, and especially true for a leader. And I want to come back to this here, not showing the way, but helping people to find the way. Yeah, and that's why coach comes after compass. So after a compass, for sure, if you want to guide a team, you have to show them the way that everybody walks somehow into the same direction, but then you let them help find their own way, how they get there. Yeah, so this is beautiful. I love what you guys have written here. Wonderful. Still, unfortunately, I have to take it away. Also, it's really great messages. Maybe Gerald, you have taken a screenshot. And what comes now, I have mentioned already with the sports coach, the corporate coach. But now the main thing is, I want to make you a coach. And for sure, I can't certify you as a coach afterwards. But at the end of the day, coaching is all about three major things: building a relationship of trust, having the right questions, and really being able to listen. Yeah, and once you can do that, you will be a great coach and you will be a great leader. Yeah, so coming back to this trust part, this listening part, and then being able to answer the right question and asking the right questions. And by the way, asking a good question is sometimes more difficult than just blurring out an answer. So I hope this resonates with you, what we have written here. And now my coach model is very easy to remember because it just means be coach. Yeah, and again, it's an acronym where COACH stands for something, and the C is first credible, which goes back to what we talked about, trust. Credibility and trust, or credible is a subset of trust. So if you are not credible, you will have a very hard time to be a good coach, hence also a good leader. And even when you go through any ICF certification, whatever you learn about is first be credible and be a trustworthy person. The O stands for open-minded. And here again, this is something which very much works against our nature. We all believe we are open-minded. And if I would ask you now, are you open-minded? You will tell me you are open-minded, and I would believe you that you believe that you are open-minded. The sad thing is there is something called bias, and there are meanwhile 180 over known biases, and we all have the one or the other bias which are working subconsciously without us knowing it. And one very famous one is the affirmation bias, yeah, where whenever we hear something, we just, this is the confirmation bias. Whenever we hear something, we just confirm, we use it to confirm what we know already. Whereas the affirmation bias, what I mentioned just now, I think this is the one we are all victim to, is that we judge ourselves based on our intentions. And we always have good intentions, don't we? Whereas we judge others based on their behavior. Do we ever change? Do we ever take the effort to try to find out the intention behind someone's behavior? Sometimes someone's behavior might look very awkward, but the intentions behind are maybe better than we think. On the other hand, our very good intentions might display a not so good behavior. And that's why when we get feedback sometimes on our behavior, we are offended because we feel, hey, I had such a great intention, but our behavior didn't really display it. So this is what I mean with open-minded. Be really open-minded for feedback, because feedback sometimes really tells you what you have displayed. And also you had great intentions. What you have displayed might not really show it. So be open for feedback and welcome those very openly. Also, open-mindedness helps us a lot when we talk about diversity, when we are very open for whatever other opinion, culture, race, and so on and so forth. And we welcome everything very openly. The last one is being open-minded for new knowledge, for new ideas. Yeah, I mean, I hear very often people saying, this doesn't work, we have done this always this way. So as a great leader, as a great coach, this is not in your vocabulary. There is nothing as a great idea. Everything should be at least listened to and looked at. And this is what I mean with open-mindedness. The A stands for accountable. So like we are accountable as a great coach for our coachee, as a leader, you are accountable for your people. And ideally see yourself accountable really fully for people, not only as the physical person, but also for their health, for their well-being. And the really great leaders have always in mind that they also have a family at home. And very often the main stress of people actually does not come from work, but it comes from home. When we sometimes discuss about work-life integration, a lot of people are saying that their real stress from all the errands from their private work. So as a great leader, please have this also in mind, that when people switch off from work, sometimes their real work actually starts. And when they come home the next day and they are maybe not performing as well, maybe they just really have some difficulties at home. And for sure, we don't have to open up their laundry and be nosy and go into their private life, but at least being aware of it, and that sometimes a low performance of an employee can just simply that something in their private life is not going as well. And we all know that if our private life is lopsided, nothing works anymore and we can't really think straight. The second C stands for being curious. Yeah, always be just curious for the things happening around you. And this goes nicely back to the change part that we discussed earlier. Because it's in line with anticipating change. I mean, as we said, change is the only thing constant and there will be always change. Yes, now we have a very massive change, but there was always change. When the iPhone was introduced, this was a massive change. When the internet started, it was a massive change. And we have not really realized so much what it did to us. So those coaches who are really curious about their people, and those leaders who are curious about the people around them and how they feel, but not only the people, also the environment and what is happening, and always updating themselves, they are the one who will always really be right. I mean, for me, one of the best examples is Nokia. They stopped being curious, yeah, and we all know what happened to them. Yeah, they thought they found the silver bullet and their handphone is the best one, and they missed the next big avalanche coming. And the H finally stands for human. Yeah, I think as a leader and a coach, at the end of the day, if we stand up for humanity and if we treat every individual as a human being, very individual, and come with a human touch, with empathy, and that we really care for them, then we are a great coach, then we are a great leader. So in a nutshell, credibility comes back to where I started, yeah, closing now the loop, that it's really all about trust. So if you can't build trust, you can't be a great coach, and you will always struggle in being a great leader. Being open-minded is the part where you really show the respect to people from all cultures, all races, wherever they are from, including yourself, that you're also respecting yourself, even with your flaws, and that you are very open-minded to look at your flaws. Accountability is about being responsible, as I said earlier, manage things responsibly, so that you are, whatever you are doing with your team, how you lead them, and also the results of your team, that you are accountable for that. And that when things are going wrong, that you are standing in front of your team, defending them. And when things are going right, you stand behind your team so that your team gets the credit. This curiosity is all about this empathy, this questioning, yeah, this key coaching skill to really question and listen and do all of this with empathy. And the human part is that you really care. So there's one nice quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah, and I really love this quote a lot, because as leaders, sometimes we are so much bogged down, especially now that as leaders, we should know how it goes on, how post-crisis looks like. But But once you show the people that you really care throughout the crisis, they become much less worried about afterwards, once they see that you are really there for them. So here my question for you would be, what would be your coach manifesto? You as a leader, how can you be a great coach? Make it really individual for yourself. Do you feel currently that you are really credible, and that if you would stand in court, that this would be one stamp you get? Are you very open-minded, also challenging yourself? The next time you get feedback, maybe even from a family member, from your children, how do you take the feedback? Are you very accountable for all the outcomes of your team? Are you sometimes maybe blaming a team member, or are you taking whatever happens in your team on your back? Are you very curious about your team members? How are they feeling, and around the things around your team, around your company, about the economy and what is happening? And at the end of the day, are you just giving everything really a human touch, and that people know that you are always approachable as a human? So I just wanted to share now one last model with you, which I call the 3 Bs, and that we have to master them, which is simply that our beliefs form our behavior, and our behaviors form who or what we become. And this is exactly the part now, yeah. If you now say, I want to become a better leader, I want to become the 3C leader, and I change now certain behavior, this is normally where we stop. Yeah? Or even think about, maybe I give you first another example. If you want to become more healthy, we jump immediately into behaviors. Yeah, maybe we change our diet, or we even read up about some diets. We sign up to the gym, and we start a lot of activities. But there is kind of this not visible membrane that we never go one step back and ask ourselves, what is actually the underlying belief of me becoming healthier now, or changing my diet? Do I want to change my diet because there is a new hip diet outside? Or do I want to go in the gym because all my friends tell me to do? Am I under social pressure? Or do I do it because the doctor told me to? Or what is this underlying belief? And only once we have identified this underlying belief, then we will change, we will behave in a very different way. Let me bring this maybe more in a corporate content, where what we become are at the end of the day our results or our outcome, and our behaviors are our practices. And normally what we are saying is, if I want better results, then I want better practices. And we all believe that best practice sharing is like the silver bullet for everything. But just imagine, all the bookshops in the world would have done best practice sharing. They would not have come up with the Amazon idea. Or if all the DVD shops in the world would have done best practice sharing, there would never have been a Netflix. Only because some people went back and really changed the mindset how people might think, then really things changed. Yeah? So the bookshops thought, and the DVD shops, people will always come to us, and they like coming here, looking in the shelves, searching something, waiting until the next thing comes. But this was the wrong mindset. So people had actually different mindsets. And once you can change that, then you can make quantum leap jumps in your practices, and then really have quantum leap changes in your results. So the same thing is now going back again to us, to the personal 3 Bs. If you really want to become a different leader, don't stop just at all the behavior, the different practices and the skills and what we have learned, but really go one step back, really to your basic mindsets, and look at this underlying mindsets. How do you think about yourself as a leader? What are your mindsets when it comes to your company? Are there any biases with regards to certain people? Do you have some mindsets like this will never work? So take this time also maybe to really try to underline, to find your deep underlying personal beliefs and mindsets. And as the term mindset says, our minds are set in a certain way and fixated. And the problem is that this is all in our subconsciousness. This happened over the past decades of our life, and it's practically pre-programmed. And we have to literally now start reformatting parts of our hard disk to really make space for these new things. And this is why behavior change is so difficult, because we never reformat our hard disk. We just try to load a new program onto it and wonder why it's not working. And at the end of the day, the whole system might actually crash. So I hope this picture maybe resonates with you. So really make a reset, reformat the hard disk, or at least make some space. That's why learning is actually unlearning and relearning. This is the best way how we learn. first unlearn some old things and then relearn the new things. And this is coming back to what Wolf said, so how also hopefully helping you to make this change possible, that you're aware changing habits, changing behaviors is very difficult. So really go this step back additionally and look what are the underlying beliefs that you have to your current behavior and to the required change on behavior, and this might help you along the way. So the key thing is for this belief, behave, become, that these beliefs, as I said already, are based on our past experience and so deeply ingrained that they are very hard to change. And fully closing the loop to the beginning where we started with the change curve, this is why we always stand at the top of the change curve looking down in the change valley and don't really want to change because we have the wrong mindset about the change. So even about change, maybe you change your mindset, like what is your mindset now about this pandemic? Have you ever fully grasped it, and how can you maybe try to change this mindset if it's a negative one in a more positive one to change things better? And if this resonates with you, I hope it's okay to highlight here the book which was mentioned by Meish already, Intentionally Becoming Different, which applies many of those principles. And the main idea is to really find the I in your life, find your inner self. As always, the authors don't earn much money with this. So for me, it's really to help you guys out there. And if you think it might be helpful, it's between 18 and 20 Singapore dollars, depending where you buy it. And it's really, if you consider that it's like 6 virtual coaching sessions where the book becomes your virtual coach, it's really a steal when you think normally a coaching session alone is several $100s. So something for you to think about. Also looking forward maybe to meet you, one or the other of you, on our Advisor Academy, which is launching soon, where we have some virtual things coming up. The main message here is I don't want to advertise for all the things, and really don't worry, I will not chase after you. I just want to leave you at the end with a wonderful quote from Charles Darwin, which I think wraps it up nicely, that it's not the most intellectual and not the strongest one who will survive, but those who are the most adaptive to change, and those who can really adapt to a changing environment, those are the ones who will survive. So never take it for granted. Good is the enemy of great. Always be vigilant, always be ready to change. Lead yourself and your team successfully through the change curve by mastering the 3 C's. And with this, I really want to thank you for your wonderful attention, that you have all stayed with me on a Friday evening. I hope it was worth the time. I hope you took back some things with you. So as I said, I will not chase after you. I will really leave you alone. If you think I can be of help or you want to stay in touch, I'm on LinkedIn. Advisor is on LinkedIn. You can WhatsApp advisor.com. There are all the details how you can get in touch, stay in touch, or if you like taking screenshots. So here are the screenshots for my LinkedIn and also for my WhatsApp. And then last but not least, thanks a lot to Meish and Pebble Road for having me here. Thanks to Gerald for this wonderful organization and making everything possible. And for sure, thanks to all of you in the virtual meeting for being with me and for this wonderful comments all over the time, the great questions and the engagement. I enjoyed myself. For me, the time flew like nothing. I hope it did the same way for you. And with this, thanks again, and back to Meish.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex. Does anyone have any questions? This is the time, maybe last few questions that we have.
So Wolf is saying he's trying to find the 3C model and the submodel somewhere, but it's not on the website.
But Wolf, you are always a step ahead. Yeah,
I'm an impatient person. Sorry.
Yeah. It's not on the website, but it's in one of our in the posts. Yeah. So I think when you search on my website for coach or compass, there will an article at least come up, and then you can read about it. And Wolf, you are really always a step ahead. This is amazing.
We'll also have the recording, so we can always come back to the recording and replay it.
Yeah. So if there's no other questions, maybe we just, that was fantastic, Alex. At least for me personally, it was a lot to observe, lot to reflect on. I think it's going to make the weekend, a good, thoughtful, reflective weekend. So thanks for dropping by and sharing your thoughts and your ideas. I think we're all better for it. So thank you.